Hi everyone, this is Kat from the Family Court Support Program, and today I thought we'd talk a little bit about resources. I've mentioned some of these resources before, but I wanted to show you how you can access them and what it actually looks like. So we're going to start off at the SASC website. We've listed a bunch of our new resources online, so you can check them out through here, and I'm going to show you where to find them. So if you go to our website at sascwr.org and you go to services, you can go down to the Family Court Support Program. When you click on here, if you scroll down towards the bottom, you'll see family law resources. So we've listed them in different categories. We've got legal services, court information, family law and legal information, child and spousal support, resources for children and parenting support, financial resources, online learning, and domestic violence information and services. So I want to take you through and show you what's actually available here. There's certain ones that I think in particular are quite helpful, and I'm going to show you how to use those. So if you click on legal services first, you can see here it gives you information about accessing the advice lawyer through the Family Law Information Center, legal aid, the Law Society referral service, which can give you a referral to a lawyer in our area that can provide you with a free 30-minute consultation to help you figure out your legal rights and options, as well as some information on mediation. What I really want to look at here, though, is information around court and family law. So if you look at court information, there's a couple things here that I think are particularly useful. One is, if you've never been onto the Ontario Court Forms website, I would definitely go and check it out. If we open the Family Court Forms in particular here, and you'll see it shows the Family Law Rules forms, and we scroll down, this is a list of the majority of the forms that you would need for any sort of family law case. It lists the form number, the title of the form, and also gives you usually a version in both PDF and Word form that you can click on. And you'll see here there's the general application form, an application for divorce, an answer or reply. So you can scroll through here if you know which forms you're looking for, pick the one you need, and download a PDF or a Word doc form that you can then fill in on your computer or print out. So this is, if you haven't accessed this before, it's a good one to know where it is, so that you can go on here and get your own court forms rather than needing to go into the courthouse, which especially right now you don't really want to have to do just to go get a few forms to fill out. So if we go back to the web page here, the other one that I want to mention is the Superior Court of Justice site. So if we open this up here, in the Kitchener-Waterloo area, our family court is operated by the Superior Court of Justice because we have what's called a unified family court. And what that means is that all of our family law issues are dealt with by the Superior Court, which is the federal level of court. In other areas in Ontario, depending on which court jurisdiction you're in, your family court matters could be dealt with by the Superior Court, they could be dealt with by the Ontario Court, or what we have, which is the Unified Family Court. And it's just the level of court. So a provincial court, a federal court, or our unified court is where all of the family law issues are dealt with by this particular branch of the Superior Court. Whereas otherwise, there were certain matters that you would have to go to provincial court for and certain matters that you would have to go to Superior Court for. So basically, as long as you're in the Kitchener-Waterloo area, this is the site that you would want to go to get any sort of information on updates with our family law court, because this is the court that deals with our family law issues. So the reason I bring you here in particular is because of the updates that are going on with COVID. This is the place to go if you want to know what's happening with court right now. You'll see at the bottom, at the top of the page here, it says notices and orders regarding COVID-19. If you click on that, it gives you a list of all of the provincial and regional notices. So these are basically the sort of posts that the court and the chief justices have provided to the public to explain what's going on right now, what the procedure is, what's happening with our court. So you can find the most recent notices, find the one that applies to you. So for example, at the top here, you've got provincial notices. So we can find out what's going on with our provincial court. Depending on which one you're looking at, you can see there's one here that addresses litigants, accused, media, and the members of the public. If you go down though to regional notices, this is probably what's going to be most helpful to you. In Kitchener-Waterloo, we're in the Central South region. If you're not sure, you can look up what your region is if you're in another area. And if you click on it, so we can click on Central South, it will take us to the most recent of these notices, which tells us what's going on with our court right now. So you can see this one was issued on June 26th, Central South region regarding civil, family, and criminal expansion. So if you scroll down here, and we can go and we can click on family matters, this tells us everything that's going on. So it says, okay, people that had matters prior to court being suspended because of COVID have been rescheduled. It tells us specific procedures for child protection court for Kitchener can be found here, where to email if you have an urgent matter, what happens if you had these types of appearances. So it's really helpful right now because they've been posting a lot of updates throughout these months to let us know what's changed and what's happening because of COVID-19. So if you're not sure about some of the protocol and what it is right now because it's changed, this is a good place to go and look. Now, we'll go on to family law information, and there's a couple of really helpful tools here that I want to show you. So the first one I'm going to show you is Steps to Justice. Now, Steps to Justice is a really helpful website that is provided by justice partners like the Ministry of the Attorney General, Community Legal Information Ontario, or Education Ontario, Legal Aid. They've all worked together to provide this website that provides answers to legal questions. And this is family law, but also different types of law as well. So you can see if you go to legal topics here at the top, you can pick from abuse and family violence, criminal law, debt and consumer rights, employment and work, family law, language, health and disability, housing, human rights, immigration, income assistance, refugee law. So pretty much everything they've really got involved here. And the way to use this is there's a couple ways. One of the easier ways is you can simply type in what you're looking for. So you could put in, for example, help enforcing child support. So if you had a child support order and your ex-partner isn't paying it and you're not sure how to get that money, you could type this into the search bar. And what this says is, okay, we can look up here and find what matches best with what we're looking for. So we could pick, my partner isn't paying child support. What should I do? That will take us to this page, which gives us some steps. So it gives us an answer here. It says, okay, this is what you can do. You can take these steps, and then it gives us numbered steps on the side. Talk to your partner, get help from a family law professional, get help from the Family Responsibility Office, or go to court. You can click on each of these steps to get more information on what you would do, and they also provide links to those places. They provide documents. So here you can see they provide a link to the FRO, Family Responsibility Office registration package. So they tell you what forms need to be filled out, where you need to go to fill those out. You can click next step and it'll tell you, okay, if you go to court, what would you need to do? So it's a very easy, intuitive way to follow through on what the procedures are if you are looking up what you need to do next. Or you can select the legal topic that you want more information on. So if you go to family law, it breaks it down a bit more. So you can say, okay, I need more information about partner abuse. If you click on that, it'll take you down to the most frequently asked questions about partner abuse. And you can scroll through and again, see what might fit you best. So what happens if I call the police? What happens if my abusive partner is charged with a crime? What's the difference between a restraining order and a peace bond? So you can click any of these, and again, it's going to take you to that step-by-step process here that shows you, okay, you can learn about a restraining order, learn about peace bonds, think about the kind of order that you would need, how you can get help, and how you can decide which option is best for you. And if you click Get Help, they'll provide you with information on how you can find a lawyer. So you can see here they talk about calling legal aid. They talk about places. So the Barbara Schliffer Commemorative Clinic is a place in Toronto area that helps places. Luke's Place is in Durham region. They also can help women to find family law services in their area. So it provides you with resources. And you can see as well down here, there's more resources as well that they think might be helpful to you. So this is a really good tool, especially because when you're involved in a family law issue, often there are other issues involved as well. Maybe you have to apply to get refugee status. Maybe you're having issues finding housing. Maybe you are wanting to ask questions about what's going to happen when your abusive partner has been charged with a crime. You can get all those types of answers here. So if we go to legal topics and we go to criminal law, for example, let's say your ex-partner has been charged with a crime and you want to know more about what could happen. You can go here. We could look at victims and witnesses. For example, and it'll bring us down here to questions. So I'm a victim of a crime. Can I get financial help for expenses related to the crime? Or, okay, maybe that's not what you're looking for. You could look for going to criminal court. So here you can find out, okay, let's see here. What happens on somebody's first court date for a criminal offense? What's a preliminary inquiry? What is a Crown pretrial? Some of those things, which are helpful to know if you're hearing from your victim witness worker that your ex-partner is having a Crown pretrial and you're not quite sure what that means. You can get more information here. They also have a live chat feature here, which if you click on it, shows you it's available Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 11 to 1 and 2 to 4, and then Thursdays from 11 to 1 and 7 to 9. You can send them a question here if there's something that you're not able to find, and they can help either refer you to a service or help you find that information. So again, a really helpful resource. You can also find updates here. So Steps to Justice has news on what's going on with the legal system. So if you click on COVID-19 news, for example, they've been really good at keeping up to date with what changes there have been to the law because of COVID-19. For example, they've talked about what's going on with the CERB benefit, updates to the law and legal services due to COVID-19, legislation to protect public health. So you can see here, they're giving you the news and the updates around the law and COVID-19. So it's also a good place to keep track of that. Now, the other one that I'm going to mention, which is also provided by Community Legal Education Ontario and Steps to Justice, is somewhere down here, the Family Law Guided Pathways. So if we open this up here, what this provides is a series of online interviews that help you fill out court forms that you need for your family law matter. So basically, it will ask you questions, you fill in the answers, and then it will kind of form that into the correct format for that court form. And again, it's not available for every court form, but they are updating it and continuing to make more forms available. So it is available for quite a few forms these days. So this tells you a bit more about the guided pathways, and it shows you the pathways that are available. So you can fill out a Form 8, which is a family law application form, an application for divorce. You can get help filing your support agreement for enforcement with the Family Responsibility Office. So if your ex-partner isn't paying child support or spousal support, that you have a separation agreement for. Help if you need to answer a family law application, if you need to do a reply, if you have a case conference that you need to do a brief for, if you need to do a settlement conference brief, or if you need to make or respond to a motion. So this really covers the majority of steps in the family law court process. So to give you an idea here, if we click on fill out Form 8, which is the initial application, it'll tell you a bit more about who is this guided pathway for. So it might tell you, if you are needing something else, you might need to use a different form. So for example, who is this pathway not for? So if you've already filed an application form, if you already have a final court order and you need to change it, if you need an order immediately, then maybe you need something else. But if you know that this is the pathway for you, if you've been told you need to fill out this form, you can click on this link here and it'll bring you here. I would advise that you make yourself an account if you can. That allows you to fill this out over time. You can save your changes and go back to it. And if, with a form like this, it can take time. It can also take emotional energy. So it's good to be able to kind of take breaks and go back to it when you're able to. But for the purposes of right now, I'm just going to continue as guest. You'll be showed the terms of use around using this and letting you know the information that they collect. Okay, so you'll see what one of the interview paths look like. So it brings you up, it tells you some information here about the guided pathway, what the pathway does. So you use this form if you need to ask the court for a divorce, custody, access, child or spousal support, or claims relating to property. At each step, you can hit continue. It'll tell you here what you need to get started. So what information you're going to need, if there's any court fees associated, how long it will take you to complete. So this one's about 15 to 30 minutes, perhaps up to around 4 hours. So now it's going to start asking you some questions. So first of all, are you worried about the safety of you or your children? It'll give you some resources here about safety planning in case you are worried about your safety. And then it'll ask you to start filling in some information. So what option best describes your situation? Are you married, married with children, common law with children, no relationship, and have children together? So we'll put in married with children, and it'll ask you what are the claims you want to make. So you want a divorce, maybe you want spousal support. And then in terms of the children, are you asking for child support, custody, access? And do you need to ask anything about property or any other claims? So maybe you want to ask for a restraining order. It'll tell you that based on what you've said, you're going to need to fill out some additional forms. So form 35.1 needs to be filled out because you're making a claim for custody or access. And because there's a support claim for spousal support, you need to fill in a financial statement. So this pathway doesn't help you with that, but once you complete this form, you'll be given a link to help you complete those additional forms. So it tells you here you're going to start off providing information about you. So you can provide your first name, your last name, your date of birth, and some of this I'm just going to fill in for the sake of it so we can move on to the next step. So we'll say, so was Rossi your name at birth? Yes. I have a Canadian mailing address. And I'm going to try and skip through some of this here to show you some more about what it will look like. So no, I've never been divorced. Do you have a lawyer? So if you say yes, you have a lawyer, it'll ask you to fill in your lawyer's information. Information about your spouse is the next step. So we'll just fill in John Doe. And you'll see you continue through the same types of steps, their address. This is kind of the basic information, and then you'll get into the more, the meat of the questions here. Say no. Okay, so then it'll ask you information about your marriage. Have you ever lived together? Yes. When did you start living together? Are you still living together? What's your date of separation? It helps to explain what that means. Do you have a copy of your marriage certificate? And it'll tell you why you need that. And if you need to get a copy, where you can find a copy and what the cost of that will look like. And then it will help to explain again, have you been to court before? No. Agreements related to what you're asking for the court for, do you have any? No. Have you done arbitration? It helps to explain what that is. Helps to explain some of these questions that the form asks you. Next is filling in information about the children. And I won't go through this whole form, but basically the other part is you can see your progress at the top here. Gives you a little fill down answer, and then it will show you, you can go back. So if you need to go back to any of these to change the information, you can. And anytime you can save and exit. And when you complete this form and then you finally save it, what you'll end up with is the completed form. So to give you an idea here, if I go and I open back up the Ontario Court Forms, that form that we were filling out was a Form 8, the general application. So if I open that document up to show you what that would look like, this is what that document looks like. So normally you would have to go in and fill out this document, which can be a bit confusing. It doesn't provide information like that pathway does to explain why they're asking for things or where to find that information. So what happens is when you finish that pathway, it will give you a file to download. And when you open it, it will look just like this, but it will have filled in all of these blank gray areas for you. So you can see already this is where the information is going. The applicant, which is you if you're starting this case, it would fill in your name and address and contact information, as well as your ex-partners here at the top. And then it was starting to fill in some of this information here, like your age, where do you live, have you been divorced before, when were you married, when did you separate, who are the children, have you been in a court case before, have you been through arbitration, what claims are you asking the court to make? So you can see it already asked us all of these questions and eventually would continue on to help you complete the rest of the form. So at the end, you basically end up with a form just like this with your information already filled into it, which is nice because if you've ever tried to fill in one of these forms before, they have some restricted formatting on them. So for example, if I went to try and fill in, let's say, a spot somewhere down here, and I didn't have enough room, it won't always let me do that. So for example, here, important facts supporting my claims, it doesn't give you very much room, and it kind of messes up the formatting a bit if you have to add more space. So what it will do is it will fill this out for you without you having to worry about any formatting issues. And then when you're done that, it will tell you, okay, it can email it to you and it will show you the pathways for the relevant forms that you also need to complete, such as 35.1 and the financial statement. And it'll let you fill those out as well. And in the end, you'll end up with a package of all of your completed documents filled in that you can download all at once and print together, as well as a file that tells you, now that you've finished this, what you need to do next. So it really takes you step by step through this whole process. So if you don't have a lawyer, this is a really helpful way to get your forms filled out. Or even if you do, sometimes it's helpful for them if you can do a draft copy of some of these forms and send it to them. And then they can help you to finish it up and edit it, but at least they have kind of the information that they need right off the bat, especially the financial statement. So this is a really good resource for if you need to fill out an application, if you need to answer an application, if you need to do a case conference or settlement conference brief, or if you need to start or reply to a motion. And all of those are pretty common steps. So it's really a pretty useful tool. I've used it several times, and you'll always have access to these. If you make your own account, it will save them for you and you can go back and access and change these forms as needed. So I definitely would suggest taking a look at this if you need to fill out some forms. So just to give you an idea, if you do create a login for yourself with Community Legal Education Ontario for the guided pathways, you'd get to go to this page after you complete your interview, which is the dashboard, and that's where it saves your documents so that you can go back and work on them later. You can see any sort of documents or interviews you have in progress. At any time, you can click resume to go back in, change any information, and finish that off. You'll also then get invitations to follow up pathways. So for example, in our application form, I mentioned that it said the other forms you would need to complete are a form 35.1, like this one here, and a form 13, which is a financial statement. So after that, you would get an invitation to complete both of those forms. You can see here, you can click start, and you would be able to start that new pathway. And finally, when you complete a form, it gets set down here to the download forms and instructions. So for example, after you completed that form that I was showing you, the application form, you would get to go in and click view. And it will show you here the list of the documents that it has created for you. So at the beginning of a family law case, there's a lot of forms that need to be completed, some of which are ones that you might do with the family law clerk when you actually go to file your documents at the courthouse. If you're doing that yourself, they're not necessarily ones that you need to type up. And so this automatically creates some of those forms that you can take with you if you're going to the filing counter to file them, which just helps make things a little bit easier, a little bit quicker, and helps out the law clerks a little bit. So you can see here, first of all, you get a family law checklist that shows you a list of all the documents you're going to need. You get a list of family court case instructions that outlines the next steps for you, your completed application form, a Schedule A, which basically means in that Form 8, often there's not enough space, and so you'll be given this Schedule A that attaches to it that fills in any leftover information. You'll get the affidavit of service, So when you serve someone with your documents, whoever served them, whether that be you, somebody, your lawyer, a process server that you've hired, has to complete an affidavit of service, like we talked about in the previous video, which then gets sworn and filed with the court to prove that the other side has received a copy of those documents. So this has created that form for you as well, basically just, again, filling in the basic information like who the applicant and the respondent is, so your name, address, phone number, saving you a little bit of time, as well as an acknowledgement of service page. So if you were mailing somebody a document for service, this is the page you'd have to send with it for the other person to fill out saying they received those documents. It also gives you a continuing record cover sheet and a table of contents, which again are those forms that are part of the continuing record that the court clerk starts for you when you first go to file that application, as well as an endorsement cover page, same thing, an endorsement sheet. Those are just pretty basic. Again, they really are just filling in your name and contact information and the other party's name and contact information on those sheets, which again makes it a bit easier when you go to file your documents the first time, as you and the court clerk aren't having to fill those out by hand. To give you an idea, and again, you can choose to download all of them or some of them. If we just click the family law checklist and court case instructions to show you what that looks like. You'll be then given this basically folder of documents that you've downloaded. And if we click on the checklist, it says here you've got a checklist to complete. So you've done your Form 8 application. Shows you it's also given you these other ones, but that you'll also need to finish these forms, the 13.1 financial statement and a certificate of financial disclosure. And in this particular case, so it'll tell you what the other forms are that need to be completed. And again, as I mentioned, usually you'll be given instructions on how to start these pathways to complete these forms as well. If we close out of this one, and we go back and look at the instructions here somewhere. This will show us the instructions for starting a family law case. So it'll tell us, okay, based on the answers we gave in the pathway, we've completed these forms and these documents. Here's what you need to do next. So you need to check your forms over, print your documents. You need so many copies of each form. Then you need to sign and date them, collect any additional documents that you might need, find out if you have to complete any other forms. Tells you again that there's some pathways to help you with those forms, like the financial statement. Lets you know about other things that you need to prepare, and this is about preparing the continuing record that I talked about with the court clerk. Talks about if you need to pay a court fee, what you can do if you can't afford to pay that fee, and then going to court. And this even tells us, okay, we said that we're in Waterloo Court District, so this is the address of the courthouse to go to file our documents. You can swear and affirm them with the court clerk if you need to. Then you're going to have to eventually attend a mandatory information program. It tells you what that looks like, how to serve the other party with your documents, and finally, give proof of your documents being served. So you can see it gives you quite detailed instructions on all of the next steps in your court process. So once you're finished these documents, it tells you what are the next steps until you get to your first court date, for example. The other tool that I want to show you is another one through Community Legal Education Ontario. Is a tool with some flowcharts on it. So that is steps in a family law case. So if we click on this link here and open it up, it provides flowcharts on the steps in a family law case, and they're interactive. So it's really helpful because at each step you can click on where you're at in the process, and it will tell you kind of what the next steps are for you and what documents need to be filled out. So if you go to the before you start, it helps you to figure out, okay, where are you? So what legal issues do you need to think about? Do you agree or disagree on what should happen? Do you want to try making a separation agreement? Which court? Do you know which court to go to? Are you the applicant or the respondent? So you can click on where you're at. So if you know that you're the applicant, you're starting a case, you can click on that and you'll get the applicant's flowchart. There's an applicant flowchart and a respondent flowchart. And it tells you here, okay, where are you in this process? Are you preparing your application? Have you gotten it issued? Have you served it? So have you given a copy to the other person? Have you filed your documents? Have you received an answer? Maybe they didn't respond. What claims have they made? Going to your mandatory information program. And then again, each step, so your first court date, your case conference, settlement conference, and how to bring a motion. And if you're needing an order right away, how can you bring an urgent motion? So to give you an example, if you went here and you said, okay, I need to, I need to prepare for my case conference. I've gone to my first court date, and now I need to figure out how to prepare for my case conference. If you click on that step here, it'll take you to an explanation. So it tells you a bit about a case conference, that it's the first time you and your partner are speaking with a judge about your case, and that you're going to kind of try to discuss and agree on your issues. It tells you about the goal of the case conference, to agree on some of the small issues, or at least some of the issues before anything goes to a trial. It helps you in terms of filling out your form. So it mentions you need to do a Form 17A, a case conference brief, which we mentioned there's a guided pathway for. It tells you what kind of information goes into that form. It tells you how to kind of fill that out. And then once you're done, how to serve and file your forms. Then it tells you that you also will need to confirm your court date. So ahead of your court date, you'll need to say basically, yes, I am confirming that I will be going to this court date. I will be appearing. And then it gives you some extra information below if you need to find out about asking for a special arrangement. For example, if you need an interpreter, how to confirm your court date if you need more information on that, how to count the time as we've talked about last time, how to update your continuing record, how to update your financial statement. So it gives you all of those pieces of information. And then you could go to the next step if you wanted to, go to your case conference, and it'll tell you more about what will happen at the case conference. So as you can see, it's helpful because you can go to your flowchart, figure out where you are, click on the spot, and it will tell you basically what's going on, what the next steps are, what documents you need to fill out, all those types of things, and as well as what the deadlines are. So, how early you need to have those documents completed before that court date, things like that. So it's a really helpful tool to go to and kind of refer back to as you're moving through your family law journey. Those are the ones that I would say I tend to use the most or give information about the most, because I think they're incredibly helpful. The other one that I want to mention though as well is through Luke's Place, but it's actually called Family Court and Beyond. So if you haven't heard of Luke's Place, they're a great organization. They're through Durham region, and they provide family court support for the Durham region, but as well, they've helped provide a lot of the resources and documents for the court support program. And so if you go here, they've actually provided a family court survival workbook for women leaving abusive relationships, and they've provided a lot of tools. So things like information on legal bullying and self-care, who can help, so how to find a lawyer, other court-related services, so information on mediation and supervised access, information on safety when you're leaving the home or when you're doing access exchanges, information on the court process, on family law issues, related factors like immigration law or criminal law, how to cope after court is over, things like that. So for example, if we went to evidence, it'll give us some information on why evidence is important. And then we can go here to, where do I get the evidence? Gathering evidence checklist, collecting electronic evidence, affidavits. So you can click on these to get more information about each part. So, what do I need to do to fill out an affidavit? So it has a lot of really helpful information and tools, and the workbook as well. You can download the thing in its entirety here. If you download the complete workbook and organizer, it's a really helpful tool. I'll open it here just to give you a brief peek of what it looks like. But it provides all of the kind of resources on the website, as well as some kind of checklists for you to complete around the abuse. Lots of really helpful information and tools around the court process, Also, it gives you some things like a page here you can use to keep track of your court appearance summaries that you could fill out when you go to court, as well as an appointment log that you could use for appointments with your family court support worker, your lawyer. Maybe you also have a shelter worker, things like that. So it provides a lot of really helpful tools. Those are the ones that I most wanted to bring to your attention, but there's other helpful tools here as well. So for example, under child and spousal support, you can find the Family Responsibility Office. That's where you can go to get the registration package if you need help getting your support order enforced. There's also information on a support calculator and a child support table lookup to help you look at, what an estimated amount of support might be for you in your situation. There's resources for children and parenting support on helping to explain to children what happens when there's been a separation or a divorce. In terms of financial resources, there's things like dealing with finances after separation, the community outreach program, which provides help for low-income families in Waterloo region, and sources of affordable food in the Waterloo region. We also have online learning. So if you go to some of these places, for example, you can find free webinars on various legal topics at Community Legal Education Ontario and Family Legal Education for Women. These are, half an hour to an hour-long webinars specifically about one topic. They're incredibly helpful. If we go to one here, for example, you can go to webinars. You can see you can find a webinar on a lot of different topics. If you wanted to look at, for example, parental alienation, you can click on that. You can see there's going to be a PDF copy, and also you can get access to the full webinar. So it's a really helpful tool if you want to get more information on a specific topic like that. And finally, there's more information on domestic violence information and services. If you need to get connected with women's crisis services, you need to find a shelter. If you need to get connected with victim services, if you want information about a supervised access center, things like that, as well as another tool that's really helpful called Security Planner. If we open Security Planner up, this is one that helps for figuring out technology safety. So I'll give you a little example here. So it asks you a few simple questions to help give you some personalized safety recommendations to improve your technology safety. So as an example here, it says, what do you use to handle your private information? So for me, that would be an Android phone. I've got, Windows computer, email, online banking. That's pretty much it. So we can click next. What are my security concerns? So I would say I worry about accidentally downloading viruses, protecting my data if I lose my phone. Let's see, maybe worrying about people seeing your screen, maybe better privacy for my communications, or you're not sure, that's okay too. And are any of these true? So I'd like information about being anonymous online, I'm dealing with an urgent digital security issue, I'm concerned about online harassment, things like that. So for example, let's say that you're worried about your technology safety after leaving a relationship. You could say, I feel like I face additional risk because of who I am or what I do. If you're feeling like your ex-partner has the expertise to use technology, as well as I'm dealing with an urgent digital security issue and I'm concerned about online harassment. So it gives me an action plan that includes 20 tips to help me better secure my online accounts, phone, computer, internet, browsing, etc. So it says my top priority, if I can only do one thing, is to do this. And that's enable two-factor authentication, which basically helps to keep other people out of your accounts by adding an extra layer of security. And you can click on Learn More to tell you more about how to do that. But it also will tell you some other things that are best practices. So how to spot malicious sites and messages, maybe get a password manager, get emergency support from experts, get specialized advice for high-risk users, text and call privately with Signal, protect my phone's data with encryption. So it tells me all of these things, and then if you've used those all, maybe you're a pretty good person with technology, you've already set those in place. You can also click here. Maybe it says, okay, you're done with those, you want some more. Okay, it gives you some other tools here. And if we click one specifically, let's say, protect your data with device encryption, learn more, it gives you some steps for what you can do to follow. It's very easy to follow, and it gives you more information about where you can go to find out information about this. This was actually made by Citizen Lab at the University of Toronto, and so the recommendations are being given by a committee of experts in digital security. They're independently funded, so they are a good place to go, and that you can kind of trust the information that they're giving you. And they've tried to make it very easily accessible for people who don't know a lot about technology to get some easy tips to help you follow through and get more safety with your technology use. So this is another really handy tool. So that is really the end of the resources I wanted to show you. So just as a reminder, these resources, you can find them all on the SASC website in the Family Court Support section. Down below at the bottom of the page, there's all of these spots, and we try to continue updating them as we can as new good resources come out. These videos are also getting posted as well, so if you go to the Family Court Support Program and the video series, you'll find that the first video is posted already. Usually it takes a few days, so they'll get posted on the Monday following the Wednesday when they're initially released. So just please remember, these are some really helpful websites. Sometimes it can be tough if you don't have a lawyer to get information or get an answer to some of your questions right away. And so this is a good way to try and help yourself to find that information so that you aren't worried about having to wait a week to hear back from a duty counsel lawyer or something like that. Also, even if you do have a lawyer, as you know, every little thing that you do, every communication is charged. So even if you're on legal aid, it helps you to keep down costs if there are simple, legal information related questions rather than legal advice that you can find out yourself online, rather than, adding up an extra charge because you have to email back and forth with a lawyer a few times. Again, lawyers are a really good resource. These are sources of legal information, not legal advice. So for legal advice, that's definitely something you need to go to a lawyer about, but sometimes the question is more around legal information, and that's something that you can find out yourself online. So this is just to help you kind of find the information that you need, use the resources that are available, and hopefully empower you a little bit to find out more about family law issues that are related to what you're going through and what you're dealing with in court, or if considering going to court. So that's the end of my chat for today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out through email at courtsupport@saskwr.org, and we'll be back again in about 2 weeks with another video. If you have any suggestions for topics you'd like to see covered, feel free to reach out by email and let us know. Thanks so much for listening. This is Kat from the Family Court Support Program. Take care.